Hello and welcome to On the Ledge podcast. I'm your host, Jane Perrone, and this week we are treading very carefully into the world of poisonous plants, specifically the nightshade family, to find out how you can grow these fascinating plants indoors. With this week's guest, Ambient Flora, aka Kenny. Thanks to all my new Patreon subscribers this week, including Neil, Ryan, Theo, Don Hang, Michelle, Sarah, Jazzy, Sean, and another Sarah. There's been a lot of new members this week, and I've just been working on my Patreon a little bit. So there's a new post coming up soon about plant maintenance, and there's also right now the chance to interact with other members of my Patreon clan via the lounges. There's two new lounges. One is for the sow along, where you can discuss your progress on sowing seeds of houseplants, and the other one is the On the Ledge Planty Book Club, where you can come and talk about the planty books that you're reading right now. So if you'd like to find a safe space to meet other planty people, do check out my Patreon at patreon.com/on the ledge. Before we go any further though, on this episode, a warning. The information and medical uses of the plants that we're talking about in this episode are purely for entertainment and information. So please don't go trying to do anything other than look at the plants that we're talking about in this episode in any way, shape or form. It's fine to grow poisonous plants in your home, but you do have a duty of care to those around you to make sure that everyone stays safe. So keep them well away from children and pets and anyone who may not know the risk they pose if ingested. So with that warning complete, it's time to get on with my interview. Kenny, aka Ambient Flora, joins me to talk all things nightshade. Kenneth, thank you for joining me on the ledge.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
I was captivated by your Instagram, I have to say. Immediate follow, because we share a passion for a very particular group of plants that maybe other people haven't thought so much about growing in their homes. Let's just start off with the very basics. Poisonous plants. What
Yes.
was it that drew you to this eclectic group of different species?
Well, basically, I'm just interested in things that are not so beautiful on the first view. I think that was the main approach I had to, just encounter that beautiful group of plants. And I just really wanted to learn more about their bioactive chemistry, about how people and humanity just approaches them throughout history. I mean, they are so significant when it comes to ethnobotany, and it's just an interesting group of plants, and they are so interwoven with our human history. And I think that's the main reason why I just wanted to learn more about poisonous plants in general, and specifically nightshades, which are like a big passion of mine. Meanwhile.
Yes, I mean, we're going to get into the nightshades. I too am fascinated by poisonous plants. I mean, mine was totally given a rocket boost by being asked to write a book about poisonous plants, and then obviously going down the rabbit hole with 50 different poisonous plants and a couple of fungi, and just discovering this incredible world. I mean, it made it two things. First of all, it made me really realize how many of the plants we grow indoors already are considered to be poisonous.
Yes.
There's not that many that one would wish to be consuming, certainly safely. But also, just as you say, how entwined with human history these plants are, not just as a murder weapon, but also as medicine, as food in different contexts, as building materials and all sorts. Uh, they really are just wonderfully diverse and interesting. This group. I want to
Yeah,
know first of all,
absolutely.
though, how your collection. What's your setup? You live in Germany. You've
Yes.
got some semi outdoor space. Can you just explain a bit about your collection and how it's structured and how you grow?
Yeah, for sure. So as you said, I live in Germany. I live in Berlin, so like in a yeah, little city flat basically in the middle of Berlin. So gardening is not that easy here. I would love to have a big outdoor space, but I'm limited towards my balcony garden, which is like 5 square meters. That's one of my main growing spaces, and the other main space is basically indoor on my windowsills. And yeah, I just try to find every nooks and cranny to get more pots in basically and to have yeah, more plants in my collection. And the great thing about my balcony is it's southwest facing, so it's a great afternoon sunny situation there, and it's quite warm because I'm in the middle of the city, so I don't get that much frost like in the outer parts of Berlin or in the rest of Germany, which is great for overwintering most of my plants. And yeah, they're really appreciating the high yeah, sunny situation, the high temperature in summer, and yeah, grow nicely basically on my balcony. And I found it so interesting to just try new setups as well. And I just brought some plants in by experience, more or less, and I just tried to grow some of them indoors, and some work really well. So, for example, belladonna, Atropa belladonna, which is not your usual indoor house plant, but I just said, let's try it, let's see how it works, and it worked well, basically. And it's a great ornamental plant if you have the space on your windowsill, and yeah, it seems to appreciate being in those controlled indoor conditions.
Yeah. I mean, I had never thought that was one of the things that just stopped me in my tracks when I looked at your account and I saw a Tropa belladonna, deadly nightshade, growing in a pot indoors. Mind blown. I just had no thought that that was possible. But when you talk about it, it does make sense. I guess it just illustrates how those lines that we draw between
Mhm.
indoor and outdoor species are really quite blurry or more blurry than we think they are. For those who are uninitiated, can you just describe deadly nightshade as a plant? What are its sort of characteristics, would you say?
Yeah, I would describe it as a really nice and beautiful, big ornamental plant. It's an attractive plant. It has very nice broad leaves. It's a bright green. It has somewhat smooth or slightly hairy stems. It gets quite tall. It could be like around 1 to 1.5 meters tall. And it's an impressive perennial, yeah, which can grow in a large pot, basically. When you encounter them in the wild, they can get up to 2 meters. I just saw wild specimens like around 2 meters. It's really impressive to see them. And they basically form somewhat small purplish, brownish, bell-shaped flowers from yeah, late spring to midsummer. And then black berries follow, black shiny berries that remind me a lot of, I don't know, like prunus species, for example. It could look like a cherry, basically. That's why they are called yeah, deadly nightshade, or devil's cherry is another synonym, because
Yes,
they
devil's cherry.
remind us a lot of cherries. And yeah, that's the tempting yeah, danger basically. When you just encounter them in the wild, you just really have to be aware what it is. It's not a cherry. It could be fatal if you ingest too many of the berries. So it's yeah, kind of a dangerous plant when you're not aware of what it is, but it's very beautiful and attractive.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear, unless you eat this thing, it's not gonna cause you any harm whatsoever.
Yes.
It doesn't have some kind of mysterious, you know, it's not giving off poison. You can touch it safely. It's just not something to put in your mouth,
It doesn't
is the
jump
main thing.
straight into your face and kill you, and that's the interesting part, or that is what makes it safe in air quotes for me to grow poisonous plants. They are plants at the end of the day. None of them will jump right at you and kill you. It's not a poisonous snake that attacks you. As long as you don't approach it without respect, or when you just approach it with respect, it's yeah safe to handle that plant and safe to encounter it. And yeah, it's just dangerous when you are not aware of what it is, and when you just consume plant material, for example. That's something you should never do. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't have the possibility to encounter those plants, it's really important to stress. I mean, they are dangerous and they can be fatal when not approached with the right amount of respect. But as I said, as long as you don't break plant material, break stems or leaves or something like that, or eat berries you don't know, you are on the safe side. And that's great about plants.
Absolutely. And, that's one of the things that really dawned on me writing the
Hmm.
book was that the people who get poisoned by plants are usually those who have a sort of a devil may care attitude to identification, or children who don't know any
Yeah.
better. And these days, we're much more likely to be poisoned. I think 5% of modern poisonings now are plants, and the other 95% is, you know, uh, prescription or illegal drugs, carbon monoxide. You are way more likely to be poisoned by something other than a plant. But obviously people still are. And actually, I have to say the one thing that I don't know if this is the same in Germany, but the one thing that people frequently end up in the hospital for is thinking they're harvesting wild garlic, which is such a popular forager's
Yes. Yeah.
food. So, I mean, I run a foraging, local foraging Facebook group, and that's the number one question was, where do we find wild garlic? I mean, it's not actually a around in my local area, so the answer is we can't. But everyone wants to find wild garlic, and then everyone gets it mixed up with all these other plants, which are not
Yeah, and
it.
there are multiple different plants you could
Yeah.
yeah think it is.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
here in my
Especially the
region, for
young
example,
leaves.
yeah, it's
It's
really
yeah.
hard to identify when you're not trained on this. And here in my
Mhm.
region, it's abundant. You can find wild garlic a lot in the forests or in the woods, but you also find all the other lookalikes, like lily of the valley, for example. And you really have
Mhm.
to get down on your knees and train your eye to just find the differences. And I mean, as long as you are not sure, you should never consume something you just found in the woods. So I think that's important no matter what plant is in front of you. So really make
Yeah.
sure that you can 100% safely identify it.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of books, lots of, spent studying is
Yeah.
vital if you're going to understand these plants. And, that way you'll stay absolutely safe. It won't be any risk at all, despite the fact that the plant has, deadly nightshade is deadly. Well, yes, only if you eat it. And I mean, I fell in love with this plant researching it because I loved all the stories about, the different ways it's been used in history. That idea that the name belladonna in the
Hmm.
scientific name came from women dropping the juice into their eyes to make their pupils dilate, um,
Isn't it
to make
funny
them look more
what
beautiful.
humans do to be more beautiful? So it's crazy,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
mean,
as you said,
please don't try that at home. Obviously, this is has many substances in this plant that do various things to you, including
yeah.
that. But really, it's um, yeah, it's not to be recommended. But there is all these fascinating historical things. I think it's also one of those plants that's associated a lot with witchcraft, which is
Hmm.
really really fascinating. What is it specifically about deadly nightshade that drew you in?
I think it's that dark, alluring presence it has in a way. It's a very beautiful plant. It has that, as I said, those big, broad green leaves when you encounter it in the wild. It has those tempting dark berries. It has those, I don't know, differently colored bell-shaped flowers. It's very attractive and yeah, just very tempting to get closer and to just get a closer look. And I think that's
Mm.
the whole magic for me. And I think it's very interesting. As you said, it has so many different, yeah, historical backgrounds. It was used in the medieval times. It was, many women were accused for witchcraft and using the plant for a spirit flight and stuff like that. So there's so much lore around it. And it's so interesting to delve deeper into its history. And I think that was the whole point for me to grow it and to get closer to it and to get to know it more. And yeah, building my own literacy. I mean, as you said, you can read so much in the literature about its potent toxicology or how to approach it, how not to approach it. And it all comes down to yourself understanding the plant better, getting to know it better, and building your own literacy when you just handle it. And I was also quite, yeah, aware of its toxicology, but I was also a bit scared, to be honest, in the beginning when I grew my first plant from seed because I didn't know, okay, how can I handle it? Is it dangerous to touch its leaf or, all kinds of unknown variables for me. And now, a few years after, I grow it every year basically from seed, and I have old plants now. They are 4 years old. And now I'm pretty sure that I can touch it safely. And it's, as I said, it doesn't jump at me and doesn't try to kill me right away. I just found my way to respectfully communicate with it. And that's the whole point for me, to just get to know something unknown better and build my own literacy.
And how did you start growing this indoors? Where did you get hold of your seeds? Or
So
yeah, did
it's
you grew from seeds?
I grew it from seed because you don't, or here in Germany, it's not so easy to find adult plants or seedlings even. So I just, yeah, encountered a few wild plants because it grows here in the German habitat. So it's easy to find it in the woods. And yeah, I just collected a few seeds, like I think 5 years ago, I found it the first time, and I just extracted them from the dried berries, and I just tried to store them out, and it worked really well. I just stored them on the surface of some, yeah, seedling trays and left them out throughout winter. And in the spring, there were some little seedlings, and I was so excited because I didn't know what to do with them and how to handle. And yeah, I just experimented and grew some outdoors, and they grow very fast. And I also, as I said, tried to grow it indoors, and it worked really well. And yeah, I just got closer to it and got to know it better that way. And yeah, that's the whole point for me.
Yeah, and members of the Solanaceae, the sort of tomato and chili family. So, in a way, I imagine it might not be that much more difficult than a tomato plant, tomato seeds.
It's
Similar
surprisingly
care?
easy. Yes, somewhat similar in care, as you said. It's yeah, it looks basically similar to a tomato when you have young plants. It's very hard to distinguish, is it a tomato, is it a bell pepper, is it belladonna? So you really need to be careful, and you really need to label your plant trays. I mean, I grow also edible nightshades as tomatoes or bell peppers, so it's very important to label right. But yeah, they are somewhat similar in care. They enjoy bright light, they enjoy lots of moisture, they grow very fast, they have a very fast plant metabolism, and they also benefit from yeah, nitrogen-rich soils, basically, like a lot of other nightshades do as well. They need a lot of fertilizer, and yeah, you can grow them in a similar setup, basically.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's such an amazing plant family. So many really poisonous plants in that
Yeah.
family, and yet so many things that are absolute staples of our diet, like the potato and the. In fact, I remember somebody describing the deadly nightshade as looking like a feral potato plant, which I thought was a little bit
In a
unfair.
way. But in a way, yeah, I would agree in a way because you have that typical Y-shaped branching, which most of the nightshades basically do when they
Mhm.
approach their flowering stage. The main stem, yeah, just splits into a Y shape, and you can see that in bell peppers very impressively, and you can also see it in Atropa belladonna. So if you just look at it with that, yeah, eye of looking at a nightshade, you can really see the similarity in their growth pattern.
I love the flowers also. We haven't really gone into much about the flowers, but the flowers are these kind of, I guess, what would we describe them? Funnel-shaped flowers. They're a beautiful, sort of nice shade, sort of interesting shade of mauve, I guess I would say. I think the flowers are fascinating as well. And then those berries that follow, as you say, are just amazing to look at. The devil's cherries is actually a really good description. And the thing that I read was that parents would tell their children that this was the plant that the devil used to tend in between his other duties of satanic duties, so that the children wouldn't go and eat them.
And
Now
there's
that
just one night where you can harvest it safely, and
right.
that's Walpurgis night. So it's the only time when the devil is busy with other duties, so you can safely harvest it.
I love that. I love all that folklore. It's really amazing. But you can understand why in the past, when children were allowed to roam so much more than they are today, that
Mm,
parents had to
hmm.
be pretty like lay down the law with children about don't eat
Yeah,
things like this that are going to poison you because yeah, the risk. I mean, those when I'm looking back in the records, Victorian times and earlier, often it was like there were mass poisonings of 2, 3, 4 year olds where children had gone out and were foraging around and found
hmm.
something poisonous. And you're just thinking, a 2 year old, oh my gosh, what was a 2 year old doing? But obviously, just different times. So I can imagine as a parent, letting your little kids go wandering off, you would be giving them some strict instructions to avoid the devil's plants was probably quite
Yeah.
quite canny on their part.
And I remember that saying from my own childhood. I mean, I grew up in the countryside of Germany, basically, like a lot of woods around us. It's like mountainous areas, and when you get that altitude, you find that plant in nature. And I also remember my grandparents saying to me, "Yeah, just be aware of those black shiny berries in the forest. Don't eat them. Don't eat any black cherries because there
Mm,
was a real danger that you could encounter that plant and." When you're not aware of what it is and you consume it, it could be fatal. And yeah,
mm.
the dose very much varies a lot. I think it's like 2 berries or 3 berries for children, up to 10 or 12 berries for an adult person, the lethal dose. But it very much depends on where does the plant grow, how is the soil set up, and stuff like that. But it's yeah, not advisable to consume any part of that plant.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the flip side of this obviously being that this is the source of atropine, which has been a very, a substance that's been used in many different contexts in medicines and
Yeah,
has had many applications. And uh, not least when you have eye treatments and things, having dropped very small amounts dropped in your eye, and lots more. Such a valuable plant. I think
it
this
is.
was one of the plants I remember reading that the UK grew sort of en masse during the First and Second World Wars as a
Hmm.
source of atropine. So obviously, an important plant, which has probably somewhat been now been sort of outdone by other more synthetic forms, but at the same time, just what an amazing history.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is. I mean, I'm fascinated by this idea of growing it indoors. Presumably, you've got to give it a nice sunny spot if you are, or grow lights if you want to get it to flower and fruit.
That's my advice. I mean, find the brightest spot indoors. You should
Hmm.
always be aware of the windows filtering out a lot of UV light, basically. So you need a lot more light indoors compared to outdoor spaces. So I try to find the brightest and most sunniest spot in my south-facing grow room, and I just place it right in front of the window. You have to make sure you have enough space because that plant gets big. So it's really large in height, but it also gets wide and it really needs a lot of space to grow nicely. But yeah, as long as you have the right conditions and a good humidity, you don't need a humidifier or something like that. I mean, I have like 50+% humidity in my
Hmm.
grow rooms, and that's enough for it to keep it happy. And as you said, you can really see the nice flowers indoors and it also fruits indoors. So it's a great house plant to try. I mean, you really make sure that you don't have pets or children approaching the plant. That's the
Yeah,
only reason I grow it indoors because I don't have kids or just pets nibbling on any kind of plants. And
that's a
as long
really
as you
good
can,
point.
yeah, make sure that's not a case, it's fine to grow it. Yeah.
We'll be back for more from Kenny on nightshades shortly, but I interrupt this poisonous plant programming to tell you about more poisonous plant stuff. I wanted to just talk about my books that I've written because on YouTube, I know there's a lot of people coming across me for the first time. So I've written three books. Two of them are probably things that you might want to read if you are a houseplant enthusiast. And the book that I wrote about poisonous plants is called The Atlas of Deadly Plants, and I've got a copy here. This is my atlas of 50 plants from around the world that are interesting, toxic, deadly in different ways. There's an audiobook version of this, and you can buy the print copy from all the usual places. So, if you're interested in the topic of this podcast, I'd recommend giving my book, The Atlas of Deadly Plants, published by Greenfinch Books, a try. Secondly, my houseplant book, Legends of the Leaf. This is a book that is my real passion project. So 25 iconic houseplants profiled, but we're not just talking about bright indirect light. We're talking about the stories behind them, the cultural, historical, religious, everything you can think of references to the plant. So plus care tips, plus really great informative care tips that actually tell you how to look after your plant properly, all based in how the plant grows in the wild. So this is available everywhere. You can find out about all my books at janeperrone.com/books, and they're available as audiobooks too. Okay, plug over. Back to Kenny. So tell me about the other plants that you like to grow. We don't just stop with deadly nightshade. I know you have plenty more. So what other poisonous plants have you got in your collection?
So deadly nightshade is just yeah the tip of the iceberg basically, and that's where everything started. And yeah, from there I just explored the world of poisonous plants, and there are so many more beautiful nightshades to grow. And I just experimented a bit. As I said, deadly nightshade gets quite tall in height, so yeah, I just wanted some other species that are not as impressive in their stature. So yeah, I just explored the Datura genus, for example. I tried to grow three different Datura species. The most successful and for me the most beautiful is Datura inoxia, or in its indigenous name, Toloache. It's a North American species. It's very pretty. It has somewhat hairy stems and leaves and large white flowers, which are nocturnal. So it's a very beautiful Datura species. It's perennial, so you can also overwinter it with a cooler period and grow it again in the next year. It forms a big tuberous root. And yeah, also some broader leaf datura species like stramonium, which is like a Jimson weed, I think it's the American name. It's very prevalent also in Europe. I think also in the UK you find it everywhere as a weed. And datura metal, which is the Indian thorn apple, and that's also a very beautiful, bigger one with purplish flowers. So those are ornamental plants I can highly recommend to try indoors and outdoors as well. What else did I grow? I've tried mandrake, Mandragora officinarum, and this is one of the more challenging species for me. I just find it's harder to grow because it's a Mediterranean plant, so it needs that cool, bright winter. So it needs a lot of light in winter, but cool temperatures. It grows in the winter, and that's not so easy to yeah, replicate indoors or outdoors. So that's one of the harder ones. But I also tried henbane species, for example,
Oh, I
and
love henbane.
they are
It's one of my
beautiful.
favorite plants. I
Oh,
just
it
think
is.
it's
Okay.
so cool. The one thing I want you to
Mhm.
try, which I've not been able to
Tell me.
experiment with, I've heard that black henbane leaves sparkle when burnt.
Mm,
Now, I mean, I don't want to put you through this because it might be releasing,
I've never
might be
heard of that. That's
releasing,
interesting. Okay.
but that's what I've read, and I'm just like, I really need to know if that's true. I just think the flowers, I think they're sometimes called the corpse flower because they're
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
gothic. If you've got a bit of a goth tendency about you, which the way I'm dressed today, you probably wouldn't think I have, but I do have a bit of a goth soul, and I just it's so it's what not it's not a plant that's pretending to be all pretty and nice, isn't it? It's a
Yes.
plant that like every aspect of it is just saying, don't F with me, right?
Yes,
It's
yes,
really.
it does. It really does, as you say. Yeah.
And how is that to grow?
It's also pretty easy. It's an adaptable plant, so it grows in various different conditions. You can try it in lower light conditions. It doesn't have really much soil preference, so it grows in every kind of soil for me at least. It can get quite large, but it's adaptable in size as long as you don't give it too much of a big pot. It stays smaller and more compact and still flowers. It's an annual, so it's quite fun to grow it every year again from seed. And yeah, it's somewhat sticky and stinking. It has some kind of stinking, sticky leaves. So that's
Yes.
the fun part
It does
about it.
smell.
You really have to wash your hands after touching it. I mean, it's not dangerous just from touching it. You shouldn't
Mhm.
touch your mucous membranes right after having plant contact, but as long as you wash your hands, it's fine. And yeah, as you said, it has those kind of morbid flowers. They are yeah, I think they are pretty, basically. They have somewhat of a light, ground color, and then they have a really dark center. So it's quite interesting to look at them closely. And it's loved highly by bees and bumblebees. So they are buzzing
Mm.
around the plant all the time in summer. It's very valuable for our ecosystem as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good plant. When I was researching the book, one thing that fascinated me, I found some academic papers about some archaeological research in the Netherlands, where they found, and this is going really far back. I can't remember the exact century they believe this came from, but really, really old human history, where they found this bone
The hollow
storage
bone, right?
container.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bone storage container filled with the black henbane seed, and they did it was stoppered with birch bark tar.
Hmm.
And I sort of wrote in the book that whatever these seeds were used for, which we obviously can't really know, we can't sort of put ourselves back in the minds of ancient peoples. But what we can say is these were valuable because you wouldn't bother
Yes.
making
Yeah.
a special container for this without there being a good reason for it, right? I
Yeah.
found that really fascinating that we've had such a long relationship with this plant.
I think it's one of the most ethnobotanical significant plants in Europe because it's as most of the other toxic nightshades, it's a delirium. And yeah, I think our ancestors used it for prophetic dreaming or for all kind of shamanistic
Hmm.
workings. And I think that's probably what you read about. And I think that's so interesting. And it's, as you said, also it's so connected to our human history. And yeah, it's quite interesting to read more and get to know more from those plants. And yeah, it's just like a rabbit hole. When you start with one species, you just
Yes, yeah.
can't stop, and you find ways to the other species, and it's so interesting to just get to know them better. Yeah.
Was it henbane that was used a lot in German medieval brewing, beer
In
brewing?
beer, yes, that's one theory is that Pilsener, which is like a typical name for beer, it's derived from Pilsen, from that city in the Czech Republic nowadays. And yeah, they are said to put henbane seeds into their beer brew, so it's more psychoactive than the beer alone. And yeah, and then came the what is it called? The purify, what's the name of that law? You know, where you can just put three ingredients into beer, which is hops, I think, barley and water are the three ingredients. In German, it's called the Reinheitsgebot. So it's just like a law that you can only put those three ingredients in. So it was banned to use henbane anymore. But before
Right.
that, it was common, as the record said, that you could put all kind of other herbs into the beer as also henbane. It's quite funny.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, think all kinds of things were happening. I mean, life was tough back then. Another of the
Yeah.
plants I started, or one of the fungi that I studied was ergot, which obviously
Hmm.
caused massive amounts of deaths and unwell people across Europe due to eating ergot infected bread. And you can imagine that back then, if you, particularly maybe as lots of women who domestically were trained by their mothers and grandmothers to use herbs for various things. You can imagine if you knew that something was a delirium and was going to like give you a break from
Yeah.
your very tough life, or if somebody was coming back injured from a battle, or had some mysterious disease, how much would you be, of course, using these things to make life a little bit
Hmm.
more bearable, right? Even if you weren't a witch. I mean, obviously, the patriarchy has written the history of
Yeah,
Europe
yeah.
and witchcraft in a
Unfortunately,
particular
yeah.
way. Um, but of course, I can totally understand how these plants were vital for life at a very difficult time when getting out of your head might be a very necessary thing to do.
Hmm.
Um, Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And there's something about black henbane. As I say, whenever I talk about one of the plants from this book, I'm always like, oh no, that's my favorite. But black henbane generally is in my top
Then you
list
should
just
also have
because.
a look at white henbane because it's also a very pretty species. I don't know if you encountered it already or not.
No, tell me about white henbane.
White
Is it one of
henbane,
these things where it's not related but just has a similar common name, or is it actually
they are
related to black
closely
henbane?
related. It's the
Oh, they're
same
closely
genus.
related.
It's Hyoscyamus is the genus name, and
Mhm.
Niger is the black henbane, and
Ah.
Albus is the white henbane,
Ah,
and it's
okay.
more prevalent in Mediterranean areas, like in most of Italian cities. I found it when I'm there for vacation, for example. You find it on warm house walls or like basically all around cities everywhere. And it's more drought tolerant. It's a little bit more hairy, I would say. It has rounder leaves and it has somewhat lighter flowers. It's a bit differently looking, but quite similar when it comes to their chemical constituents. And it's quite easy to grow as well. So I grow it every year from seed, as I said, and that's one of the species that work very well on a windowsill indoors. I
Mm,
actually have one here, one of my seedlings, which
okay.
I just saw
Oh,
it a
look
few
at that.
weeks ago. They are growing now.
Mm,
We are mid-May, so
fascinating.
I think in June they are, yeah, 5 times that size. They grow very
Mm.
fast. Oh.
Interesting. The reason why I asked whether it was related is because there's so many plants that have common names that are
Hmm.
similar. Like, for example, in the UK, and another plant in the book is white bryony. And in the UK, there's another plant called black bryony, and they're completely unrelated. So, white
Yes,
bryony, Bryonia dioica. And funny enough, going back to your point about mandrake, that was also
the
called
English
false
mandrake.
mandrake, the
Yeah.
English mandrake. I mean, I love that plant. I don't know if you could grow this as a house plant because the one characteristic of white
Hmm.
bryony is this. They say that the root of it is the size of a baby when it's
It
mature.
gets
It's a
huge.
massive,
It gets
massive
huge.
root. It's
I've
absolutely
tried
enormous.
it in a pot. I've
Have
tried it, but
you?
it's yeah, yeah, as a balcony plant, a young plant. I tried it, but it gets so massive, so it's not
Mm,
possible to handle it in a pot, in my
right.
experience. And yeah, it creeps all over the place and all over other
Yeah,
plants. So
I can
it's
imagine.
no, it's not easy to grow as a potted plant, in my experience.
Oh, it's interesting you've tried. I mean, that again, that one, I love the fact that, back in medieval times, there were, English scam artists who were,
Hmm.
pretending that they
Yeah.
had mandrake, and they'd take these big white bryony roots and carve them up and make them look like mandrake roots, which obviously mandrake is not wasn't widely available in the
Hmm.
UK or in England, because it's not a native plant in that region. And I don't think it's not something that's I've ever seen or heard of, even growing here as an invasive plant. So obviously, I imagine it would be very expensive to get your mandrake from Europe. So people, of course, were like, "Oh, I can make a mandrake." But yeah, not really closely related to the black bryony, which is a member of the yam family, I think. So
I think it's the
yeah.
cucumber family, isn't
Oh, is
it?
it the cucumber?
A
Yeah.
squash or
So
something
um,
like yeah,
y-
related to
that's
cucumbers.
Yes, I think the white brine is cucumber, and I think the black bryony, I'm gonna
Ah, the
have to
black
just
one
look
is
this up
ah
now, is Dioscorea. Is Dioscorea,
okay, interesting.
yeah, Dioscorea communis is the black
Yeah,
bryony. So that's a yam, whereas the Bryonia, the white bryony is a cucumber. So I mean, plant
crazy.
families, this is why we need to know the scientific names, isn't it? Because otherwise
Yeah.
we'd get very mixed up. But I love the fact that you've tried to grow that as a plant. I would yeah. I mean, I don't know how big a size a container you'd need to have a mature one, but I think it's far better off in the ground ultimately. But it's a beautiful, like, the leaves are lovely, and it's an interesting plant to grow. And you see it a lot in the UK. Just if you go walk down alleyways and things, you'll see it climbing over things. And I always think, gosh, down there's a massive root
Yeah. It's the
I'm
same
looking
here.
at.
It's so abundant around Berlin. Also in the middle of the city, you find it creeping along hedges or over
Mm,
fences. It's yeah, a very attractive plant, as you said, and it has also quite yeah, shiny or not shiny, but they are brightly colored. Those little flowers in between the leaves, so you can really spot them nicely. They are
mm.
tiny, white, creamish, I would say, and yeah, very pretty and attractive.
Yeah, it's a really nice plant, as I say. And you're probably like me when you're walking around or, visiting different cities, like constantly eyes darting around, looking at interesting plants. And I always have a sort of a smile to myself when I see something that I know, which is most plants, to be fair, but all of these plants with these fascinating histories. And I sort of smile to myself to think, I mean, it turns you into an awfully voluble person, because if I'm walking with somebody and I see an interesting plant, I almost can't help myself and saying, "Oh yes, that's Arum maculatum over there." And did you know
Yeah.
that those tubers were used to make starch for stiffening Elizabethan ruffs? I just can't stop myself. I'm such a plant bore, but there's so many cool plants out there, right?
Yes, and that's the fun about, I think, educating yourself in a way, just learning more about plants and also, yeah, educating people around you because we just have so many of us don't have that view on plants. It's just like the green background noise. And I think it's so important to just build your own literacy and get closer to that green background and, get your connection to nature. And if
Yeah.
that's the approach through toxic plants, why not? I mean, they have an interesting lore to share, or they are significant when it comes to their medical compounds or whatever. It's so nice to just, yeah, read more about natural things and plants in general and get closer to that natural world around us. It's important.
I totally agree. Well, that's a good point to end, but I must ask you, Kenneth, before you go, do you have any plants that aren't going to kill you in your apartment? Have you got
For
anything
sure,
that's
for sure. It's
completely
this interview sounds like I just grow toxic plants, but it's not the case. I'm just a plant nerd in general, I would say. It all started with orchids. I'm basically one of those plant people, probably who started their collections during the pandemic because that was the first time I really got the chance to spend more time home and, just make my home more beautiful and more interesting and to add some color to it, and that's how it all started for me. So I started with orchids basically, then I went down the succulent route with cacti and other flowering plants. I also grow a lot of bulbs, so it's basically all connected through flowers, I would say, hence the Instagram name ambient flora, because I'm
yes.
attracted to flowers. And yeah, I think that's the most interesting part of a plant when they flower and show their beauty and yeah, just really connect with us through that. Yeah.
Well, I recommend everyone go and look at your wonderful ambient flora Instagram, because it is both sort of eye-opening and mind-expanding. And I've been delighted to have you on the show. So thank you very
Thank you
much for
so much
joining
for
me
having me.
today.
Thank you.